Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second day of the Congressional Bipartisan HBCU Caucus's third annual Diversity in Tech Summit. I am Congresswoman Alma Adams. I represent the 12th Congressional District in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, North Carolina. Thank you to our partner, Truist Financial, for their support in making today possible. Yesterday, we held our first ever virtual HBCU Partnership Challenge luncheon and learned about innovative, successful partnerships between companies and HBCUs. Today, the work continues. Through a series of panels and conversations, we will hear from top corporate thinkers and HBCU leaders as they discuss the dynamics of the tech industry and the ways in which we can collectively achieve equity and inclusion in the field. These discussions put key stakeholders in the same room to talk through and work out the hurdles of assuring that everyone has access to careers in tech, especially students of color. And while the room we share this year is virtual, I know that the collaboration and the solutions will be concrete. Leveling this playing field is no small task, but our work today will get us closer to that goal. Over the course of the day's activities, we'll examine how leaders in the private sector can partner with HBCUs to thoughtfully recruit a wide array of talented young professionals. We'll assess how COVID 19 has impacted HBCUs and their students and the tech industry, and we'll chart a path forward that puts us firmly on track to progress. We will hear about exciting advancements and lingering shortcomings of corporate America's diversity and inclusion efforts. And we will delve into the concept of innovation and how companies are adapting it to their unique cultures and discuss how a diverse workforce can only strengthen these efforts. I hope that every student tuning into the summit will feel empowered and confident that the tech industry is not full of far fetched, unattainable careers, but instead a wide range of professional paths that are well within their reach. I also hope that corporate leaders participating today will deepen their commitments to advancing a future in which tech jobs are accessible for everyone who has something to offer, especially HBCU graduates. Again, this is no small task, but together we're up for the challenge. And so, with that in mind, I want to take a moment to thank our partner, Truist Financial, for embracing our vision of this year's Diversity in Tech Summit. Truist is clearly committed to advancing the summit's mission of diversifying the tech workforce, which of course includes financial institutions and providing pathways to opportunity for HBCU students nationwide. We have an exciting and incredible agenda planned for you today. We're going to kick things off with our keynote fireside chat with Truist's head of sales and client experience strategy, Thomas Ransom. Thank you, Thomas, and thank you, Truist, for partnering with the HBCU caucus on today's event. We have enjoyed working with Truist to build a fantastic summit. And for those who are joining that may not be as familiar with Truist, Thomas, tell us a little bit about your journey.
Thank you, Congresswoman Adams, for that wonderful introduction. And let me begin by expressing my gratitude to you. It was probably a year ago when we first met as we were on the Hill talking about this groundbreaking merger between BB&T and SunTrust. And I had the opportunity to stand beside you and announce that together we'd be joining this Congressional Bipartisan Caucus on HBCUs. We said when we did this merger that it must stand for something. And that led us to our purpose, which is to inspire and build better lives in communities. From the very beginning, the concept of better was ever present. So even in our brand promise, you see Truist stands for better. We know and we believe that banking can be better. We think the current system is broken. And together we can be positioned to lead and shape for the future of finance. To your point, banking is a technology opportunity. It's full of innovation, but we have to attack the issues. We have to be diverse. We have to be inclusive, and we have to be transformative. At Truist, we are positioned to lead that transformation. We think that our T3 strategy, which is combining our world-class touch with industry-leading technology, will build trust with our stakeholders. And so today, I'd like to begin by sharing a few examples of how we bring our purpose to life through T3. As we all know, COVID is just shaking this country, and I'm sure you've seen that with your constituents, the number of folks who've lost jobs, lives. It continues to wreak havoc on this economy in this country. So very quickly on, we pulled together what we call our COVID-19 client experience and digital control room. Now, we pulled that group together because we wanted to have the resources there to quickly respond and to provide the resources for our clients to help them through this. So as a result, Truist was the first major bank to launch a comprehensive COVID-19 response program. We're one of the first banks to launch an online portal for the Paycheck Protection Program. I know you've received a lot of calls about that. Our teammates acted swiftly to put in place the digital solutions. The first few weeks of that, it was scary. But businesses didn't know if they'd be able to stay open, if anyone would come in and shop. So I want to thank you for your leadership around that and getting the Paycheck Protection Program through there, and supporting corporations like us as we move quickly to use technology to help. And so we quickly put in place a virtual payment relief assistance program, a digital branch appointment scheduler, a digital mortgage forbearance application. Early on, our call center was overwhelmed within days, thousands and thousands of calls. Maybe you may have received some of those calls in your office. So what we did, we built this chatbot using some technology. We partnered with Salesforce. We have a fantastic partnership there. We created some digital mortgage forbearance tool. We increased intake digitally by 50% in the early days. Far better experience and empathetic experience for our clients. And that's really key for the clients. It's you want to be responsive, but clients need to know that we empathize with them. We understand what's going on, and that experience reflects that. So overall, we were able to reduce those times by 58% by embarking on those that new technology.
So, Thomas, well, first of all, let me just say I've been involved with the bank for a long time under another name. But SunTrust, and I love your logo, by the way. But you mentioned your T3 strategy, and let me just tell you that we've got a 3E strategy, which guides the work of the Congressional Bipartisan HBCU Caucus. First of all, enacting legislation, which is clearly what Congress is designed to do, expanding the national knowledge base so that nationally we get the word out about HBCUs and how vital and important they are and the contributions that our schools have made. And then educating members of Congress and their staff. Now, just because you are elected to this office, it doesn't mean that you really know everything. And there are probably some folks who think they do. But we've used this opportunity and this caucus to thoroughly educate our members, because we just believe that, of course, knowledge is power. And with that, that enables us to, I think, move the caucus in the way that it should move. Since its creation in 2015, the caucus has led substantial efforts to promote and protect the interests of HBCUs. Now, as a two-time graduate of an HBCU, clearly, I am very interested and came to Congress with that in mind. In those 5 years, we passed the Future Act. That's my legislation, which permanently guarantees $255 million a year for HBCUs and MSIs and their students, 86 million of those dollars for HBCUs. We secured major wins in the 2018 Farm Bill, and I have the pleasure of sitting on the Ag Committee and being vice chair of that committee, including the 1890s Centers of Excellence, the 1890 scholarships, and provisions that would provide greater funding equality for HBCU land grant universities. There are 19 of them across this country and one in North Carolina. That's North Carolina A&T. And then we've provided financial relief for 15 HBCUs utilizing the HBCU Capital Financing Program to complete infrastructure projects. As you know, many of our schools are over 100 years old. As a matter of fact, some of our HBCUs, about 9 of them, reached 150 years. So that's really important in terms of infrastructure. And since our caucus began its annual day of advocacy on the Hill in 2018, funding for HBCUs has increased by millions in annual federal funding. So needless to say, we have no plans to slow down. We're going to keep coming. So the pandemic has amplified inequities that are faced by HBCUs and students that they serve. And we want to do everything possible to ensure that we come out of the other end of COVID-19 stronger than before. So we're looking forward to taking our annual advocacy event, HBCU STEAM Day of Action, virtual. It's going to be virtual. It'll be in March, to continue advocating for greater funding and better policy to support these institutions and their students. And that day of action is a perfect example of why corporate partners like Truist are so important in this fight. And while it's impactful to have HBCU presidents meet with Congress to talk about their priorities, and they do that all the time, it's quite twice as impactful for a company to sit alongside those presidents and say, as you have, we stand behind these priorities because we need HBCUs to continue to succeed, for us to have a strong, diverse, and knowledgeable workforce. And so it's really good that that Truist has been involved in terms of making this commitment as well.
Yeah, and I want to applaud your leadership around that. The Truist team had an opportunity to participate in your last STEAM Day, and we will continue to support it. To your point around the infrastructure opportunities at many of our HBCUs, I've had the opportunity to study the status, and the reality is 46% of our HBCUs have infrastructure deficiencies. So the need is there. We look at the graduation gap, the graduation rates at our HBCUs, and immediately some folks will say that that's a reflection of the institution. But what I've dug into it and understood is this is where corporate America has the opportunity to come in and help with the number one problem, which is, as I see it, gap scholarships. The driving reason for most of our students that have to pull out of school, it's financial. And so I think there is a unique opportunity for corporate America to step in, to actually spend time on the campuses. I myself, over the last 4 or 5 weeks, have talked with over a dozen HBCU presidents. I have the privilege to help lead our HBCU strategy here at Truist. And as part of that, we wanted to be very strategic and intentional with our relationship. We wanted to understand what the challenges were, what the opportunities were, and how we could, as a corporation, play a role in it. And so in conjunction with those college presidents and really understanding that, we've really shaped our strategy around 3 components. How do we support the students, support the institution, and support the brand? And so when we think about supporting the students, I'll give you a very recent example. The other week, I was able to, as we talked about with the impact of COVID, it's been extremely hard on the African American community. And so we were able to provide over 730 laptops, for students at an HBCU who didn't have laptops, right? So we want to go to this virtual learning capacity, but we've got to think through that. I will tell you, in communities like West Charlotte and other areas, we are working to provide Wi-Fi. So kids in the neighborhoods have access to that. We think about supporting the institution. We were recently able to partner with an HBCU to help them to fund for COVID testing. So we think about getting kids back to campus, but we've got to make it safe. And so that's the opportunity to partner with the school to really understand what the needs are and help there. And we think about supporting the brand. As we discussed, the Truist brand is new. We are a year into it. And so it's important that people know who we are on these campuses. And so one of the things we're partnering with you on is our leadership, the Truist Leadership Summit in November. So we are very excited about that opportunity. Truist has been known for our Leadership Institute. And so the ability to bring HBCU presidents in and to have a conversation with you and congressional leaders, we are super excited about that. I want to just state that we are in this for the long haul. It is my personal commitment. It's the commitment of our CEO and our board. Truist stands for better. And so as we learn and iterate, we'll create the most sustainable and impactful strategy to make sure our partnerships are meaningful, providing scholarships, internships. We want to track grads throughout the employment life cycle. And we want to continue to have meaningful sponsorships at events like today's summit. We go back to the purpose of Truist, and I think about the inspire part of it. And for me, inspire means our partnerships, we need to measure the outcomes. And I'm very pleased. A few weeks ago, you all can go out and look, but Truist released our first corporate social responsibility document, and we were very intentional about that. We said we put marks out there. We said we wanted to go from 11.9% Black teammates in our senior leadership to 15% in diversity. We currently have 45% of our board directors that are either racially, ethnically, or gender diverse. You have to be, we think you have to be intentional around these type of targets and efforts to make sure you have diversity throughout the organization. We have an intentional strategy of engagement with our HBCUs. We have a diversity recruiting team. And so I think, Congresswoman, that is getting to the type of action that you and I have talked about that you want to see.
Absolutely. Wow. I am incredibly impressed. You have certainly traveled a lot of miles over this year since we sat down in my office here in Washington. And I want to thank you for that, for having a comprehensive strategy. I mean, that's very, very important. I think that's one of the things that we did initially when we set out on this venture in terms of our partnership challenge to corporations like Truist and others. When we launched the partnership challenge 3 years ago, well, actually it's been a little more than that, but Bradley Byrne, my co-chair of the bipartisan partnership, and I looked at encouraging organizations to build stronger and deeper lasting partnerships with HBCUs. And as you mentioned, it's one thing to sit down and talk with me and members of Congress, but it takes it to another level when you're able to actually sit in the room with our chancellors and our presidents and those folks who are really working on behalf of these schools and doing the heavy lifting every day. So we launched that challenge because we wanted to level the playing field for our schools and our students, and we wanted to ensure that HBCUs have access to the same federal resources and private sector opportunities as predominantly white institutions have. And so we've got to have, when you think about it that way, a collective effort from both the private sector as well as government. Now, Intel was the very first company to accept the challenge. It's committed over $300 million to its diversity and technology initiative. It established financial assistance programs, internship opportunities, and so forth. Today, we are proud to announce that we have 47 companies that have followed suit, from IBM's recent 100 million investment in quantum computing program and training at HBCUs, to TIAA's HBCU Early Career Insights programs, to City's 4-day HBCU Innovation and Leadership Symposium, and the HBCU partnership companies are really moving the ball forward. So I really appreciate all that Truist is doing and that you've shared, because working together, we have found, and we know that it's going to be the case, that the best kinds of partnerships are those, first of all, that are mutual, that truly take into consideration the needs of both parties, and long term. As you said, you're in it for the long haul. So that there's time to learn about each other. You learn about not only what you're doing as an entity, but also our schools, and adapt partnerships as needed to find success. Because you know what, Thomas, we know that showing up on a campus once a year, calling it a day, is simply not enough. And I'm glad that Truist believes that as well. Truist knows that. So tell us a little bit about diversity and equity and inclusion, a little bit more about Truist in terms of what you're doing.
Sure. Thank you for that. And I think your point is spot on, and I do applaud all 47 corporations that have taken this pledge, and I encourage other corporations that are on this call to continue to take the challenge. So diversity and inclusion and equity are important to us, and I do want to say that we are privileged that both institutions received 100% on the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index. That's important. I think it's important from a teammate perspective that each corporation, every corporation, has an intentional, diverse recruiting strategy. Research shows that the diverse corporations are more profitable. So it is in your best interest to do that. So we have programs focused on increasing diversity across our senior leadership. We have 8 business resource groups. I have the opportunity and the privilege to lead our Black leaders, organizers, and doers group. And here's really the cool thing about these groups. When you go through tough times, as our country has gone through with the social injustice here, we have, as a corporation, taken the stance that we are going to have the tough conversations, because it's important that all teammates understand the challenges of a certain segment of our group. And so over the last few months, we've had hundreds of days of understanding sessions where we encourage bold and courageous conversations on topics like race and social justice. We recently had Ben Crump speak. We had my friend Wes Moore come and speak. He'll be joining us today later on in this summit. We require all of our leaders to take unconscious bias training. And so I think those are the steps that we have to take if we truly want an environment where all people feel welcome and can bring their entire self to work. From a client perspective, this time last year, we announced at Truist that we would invest or lend $60 billion over the next 3 years to low and moderate income communities. So we are pleased that we are executing on our commitment. We launched our Truist Cares initiative this year in response to the crisis. We quickly allocated $50 million out to the community organizations that could help people that lost their jobs, needed health care, food, and we continue to do that. We have over 275 partnerships with multicultural community partners, which is important there. And then from a community perspective, we partner with over 400 community and national organizations. So organizations like the U.S. Black Chamber, En-ROADS, who we'll have here also joining us today, UNCF, Thurgood Marshall. These are organizations that can help connect us with the HBCU community and the overall community at whole, but also to help hold us accountable and to ensure that our strategies are impactful and that we're executing on what we hope to do.
Wow. Wow, accountability. That's what
That's
it's
right.
all about. I am again very impressed with not only what you're doing, but how thoughtful you are engaging in this process. And of course, when we think about today, diversity in tech, many, many opportunities. And of course, it's very critical for creating those opportunities because when we look at and going back to educating folks, HBCUs comprise just 3% of all of our colleges and universities in the nation, but we produce 42% of African American engineers. We've done so much for our communities and we've contributed quite a bit to the nation, even though we receive a fraction of the funding and support of our counterparts. And that's why I'm committed to elevating the discourse surrounding our schools on a national stage, especially in terms of conversations about the need to diversify our workforce, and particularly the tech workforce. So, Thomas, I know you agree that you truly cannot have diversity tech without HBCUs. They are critical, absolutely essential. It's interesting and it's really, I think, rewarding to see how Truist is responding to the opportunities uh, with our HBCUs as key partners. Uh, there's a lot of value in terms of our schools, and I want to just say how much I appreciate the fact that Truist realizes the value of HBCUs and how much we contribute, 15 billion annually to our national economy, 42% of Black engineers, that's what our schools produce, including more than 46% of Black women engineers. And I had the privilege of serving 40 years at Bennett College, a women's HBCU. We account for more than 1/3 of all Black STEM degree earners, and we've provided many pathways of opportunities for so many young people. And I'm just delighted that Truist has taken the steps that you've taken as well.
So thank you for that. And by the way, we have partnered with Bennett, and so we do recognize how great that institution is. And I do want to say, when people think and you look initially just back at the graduation rates, the Education Trust there in DC did a study, and what my belief is based off of is it's more of an income challenge. And so the Education Trust did a study and they looked at the income percentage. So the low to moderate income student, and let's see the graduation rates of those students at predominantly white institutions versus those of the HBCUs. And what we found is that the HBCUs graduate 37% rate there versus 32% at the predominantly white institution. So what that tells you is the HBCUs are effective with less resources, their ability to provide a quality education and to get that student through the process. And so the opportunity is for us as corporate America and Congress to continue to support these HBCUs with the resources so we can help more of the students. Let's take finance off the table. Right. That should not be, when we think about the American dream, we think about the opportunity. I myself, it's my story. I come from a background. I'm the first in my family to have the opportunity to go to college. And so my college decision came down to which college recruited me for football. But had it not been for that, then it would have been, where could I afford to go? And so it's not a question of intelligence. It's a question of opportunity. And if we take finance off the table, then I am 100% confident that more of our Black communities, more of our Black students will definitely graduate from college, but they'll go on and be successful in any career. But today, I think the opportunity there is to have more Black representation in technology.
You are absolutely right. I'm a first generation college student myself. My mom did domestic work. She cleaned floors. I grew up in the ghetto of Newark, New Jersey. Went on to North Carolina A&T State University, who saw the potential in me and helped me to become all that I have become. And I was able to go on and after getting my master's from A&T to get my Ph.D. from the Ohio State University, only because of the North Carolina A&T. When you look at it, our schools have produced 40% of African American members of Congress, 40% of the engineers, and so forth. And with over 300,000 students enrolled at our nation's 102 HBCUs, we know that they're receiving high quality instruction and skills. Now, we've had a few of our schools to close, but not because of academic deficiencies. As you said, it's always been about money, and let's take it off the table because these schools have produced incredible leaders for our communities and for our country. Now, I just want to mention that one thing, the caucus does send out a weekly newsletter. It highlights the ongoing work here that we're doing in Congress, as well as opportunities that are available from our challenge partners in terms of jobs, internships, events, and so forth. So I do encourage folks who are listening today to sign up for the newsletter. We'll send the link in the chat. And as it relates to efforts of our network to advance equity and access for HBCUs and students of color. So I do want to just say that our next 4th annual STEAM Day of Action, which will be virtual, will be next March. And we'll continue to bring together HBCU and industry leaders, members of Congress, for a collective day of advocacy around our more than 102 HBCUs and the 300,000 students. Thomas, you have been absolutely wonderful. Great conversation with you, my brother. Thank you for all of the great work that Truist is doing and the leadership that you're providing in that regard. We want to continue to not only partner with you, but to continue our work. And we know that HBCU, I say I'm HBCU strong. Our schools are great. And, I'm just excited that North Carolina has more HBCUs than any other state. Nothing could be finer than to be in Carolina at an HBCU.
Yeah. Well, now I'm a Carolina resident, new to Charlotte. So glad to be here.
Johnson C. Smith, I represent SU, the Golden Bulls.
And I will be getting me some Golden Bulls swag for sure.
Okay.
I want to thank you for the opportunity today, and I do want to end with this point. And I think it's not just financial services, but I do want to speak for financial services. It will be disrupted, and there's a disconnect currently that we have to address, and it's a disconnect between the services people expect and need. Between what we as financial services offer. And so to do that, we have got to address the gap in technology, which is diversity. Mm-hmm. It's the lifeblood of innovation. And so as we move forward and we think about the future of finance, the future of technology, we have to make sure that there is ethnic representation in technology. We have to continue to implement programs and initiatives that help make progress and penetrate in the nation's tech sector. Both companies and HBCUs have a role to play. I think we can do this through education, resources, internships, a concerted effort to design and provide career opportunities, and importantly, conversations like this. We have to keep the conversation going. Congresswoman Adams, we look forward to the HBCU Leadership Summit we'll hold on November 9th. I want to thank you for your leadership for this caucus, giving us the opportunity to work with you over the last year to create some of the change that's needed. We know we have a whole lot more work to do, but with leaders like yourself, I have no doubt that we'll get there. So thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Thomas. We can be the change we want to see.
So For the audience, I do want you to know we're about to take a 10-minute break to transition to the next panel. Please join us back. You will not want to miss. Our first panel today will feature a corporate and HBCU engagement strategies. We're going to be joined by panelist Terry Ann Lord, who's from Accenture, and then we'll be joined by Scott Binder, who's the CEO of Farm Credit Services. And so that panel will be something you'll want to see. It'll be moderated by Brent Switten of the Bowie State University. So
Right.
please join us back in 10 minutes. Thank you.